This is the manikk MP-800. It is a programmer for the Roland JX-8P, JX-10 and MKS-70. It has a LED indicator for incoming MIDI, MIDI TRS Type A input jack, and the programmer connector for the synthesizer. A MIDI TRS Type A cable is included. You connect it to the MP-800 input jack and the other end to a MIDI out connector on your MIDI host. If you already have connected your Roland synthesizer to your MIDI host, you can connect the MP-800 to your synth's MIDI through output. You connect the MP-800 on the backside of the JX-8P and JX-10. Attach the device to the PG-800 connector. Then you connect the MIDI input to the synth's MIDI through connector. The incoming MIDI from the computer comes into the synth's MIDI input. The MIDI message then goes through to the synth's MIDI through output and to the MP-800. Now you can use any MIDI controller to send MIDI CC messages to the MP-800. When using the MP-800, you should have the synth in Edit Parameter mode. Press the parameter button on the synth. Now the display is showing which parameter you are editing and its value. If we now change the VCF frequency from the MIDI controller, we can see the parameter changes directly on the display. Here we have used Innovation Launch Control XL as the MIDI controller. We have created and printed out our own overlay. You can download this overlay in this configuration settings file from the manikk website. Nice to change the VCF cutoff parameter. All parameters can be controlled. DCO1, DCO2, mixer, filter, VCA, LFO, envelopes and chorus. If we change DCO1 tune, we hear the change directly and we can see the value on the display. VCF frequency change. Fine-tune. We can play with the LFO. LFO amount. LFO rate. LFO amount. LFO rate. The two envelopes can be edited with the 8 faders. Take away the LFO. Down here are 16 buttons that cycles most of the stepped parameters of the synth. Each time you press a button, it cycles the value to the next. For example, the DCO1 wave parameter. You can see which waveform you have selected on the display: noise, square, pulse, sawtooth, back to noise again, and so on. Let's turn on DCO2 and change the DCO2 waveform. Range cycles between 16, 8, 4, 2 and back to 16 again. The MP-800 have 64 presets. Press and hold the preset button. Then you select bank 1 to 8 with the bank select buttons. And then you select to slot 1 to 8 inside the bank. Finally, you release the preset button. Press and hold the preset button. Bank 1. Slot 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. Release the preset button. Press and hold the preset button. Bank 2. Now we can select sounds from bank 2. Slot 1. Slot 2. 3. Release the preset button. Let's listen to the presets from bank 8. Patch 1 in bank 8. Patch 2 in bank 8. Patch 7 in bank 8. You can also save and load your own patches. The MP-800 cannot read any parameters from the synth. It can only send parameter values to it. Therefore, if you want to save your own patches, you should always start from a known state. By loading a MP-800 preset, load a user patch or press the random button first. Here we start with preset 1, from bank 1 in slot 1. The first 3 presets are simple startup patches when you want to create your own sounds. Now we can tweak and create our sound. We change the VCA mode. Now we can adjust the VCA envelope for our sound. A little LFO on top of this. Sine. And then chorus. If you want to save a patch, then you press and hold the Save button. Then you select a bank 1 to 4. After the bank you select to slot 1 to 8. Then we release the Save button. Here we save to bank 1 in slot 1. Now we change the sound to something completely different. If we want to load our nice patch again, we press and hold the Load button. Then we select bank 1 and then slot 1. Yes, here we have our nice sound again. 4 banks with 8 slots gives a total of 32 user patch memories. It also has a random function. This button sends the CC for randomize all parameters. This can be an inspiring start for creating your own patches. Now we have a good start. Let's tweak it a bit more. We save it in bank 1 slot 2. Now we have 2 saved patches. Load bank 1 slot 1. Load bank 1 slot 2. There exists a lot of different MIDI controllers. Here we are using the Novation Launch Control XL. Here is a smaller variant called Launch Control. Korg has made some controllers called Nanocontrol 2, Nanocontrol 1. We are using the Novation Launch Control XL because it has lots of knobs, faders and buttons so we can control all features from one single MIDI controller. This solution with the MP-800 requires a MIDI host. The MIDI controller sends MIDI CC messages to the MIDI host. The host can be a DAW in a computer, or a standalone hardware MIDI host. The host then sends the incoming CC message to the manikk MP-800 device. The MP-800 converts the CC message to the synth parameter and value and send it to the PG-800 connector. The MP-800 have a feature called macros. We will start with the preset from Bank 2 and Slot 3. A macro is a feature where you can group up to 4 parameters and control them all from one single knob. We press and hold the Learn button. Then we tweak the macro knob that we want to program. Then we choose the parameters that we want to include in this macro. Let's choose VCF frequency, envelope to release, and finally LFO rate. Then we release the Learn button to save this macro. Now when we tweak the macro knob, we will edit all 3 selected parameters at the same time. Let's adjust the LFO amount so we also can hear the LFO rate change. With the macro knob at its max, then we also have set the LFO rate, the VCF frequency and the envelope to release to max. Now all 3 are set to half. Let's learn a new macro for macro knob 1. VCF frequency. Tuning for both DC01 and DC02. How will this sound? In the display you will see text and values flickering because it changes multiple parameters very fast. It is also possible to adjust the ranges for each parameter in a macro. We press and hold Learn. Select the macro to learn. We include VCF frequency. There, we want our lowest frequency value here. Press low. There, we want our high value here. We press high. Continue to hold the Learn button. We are not finished yet. Let's include envelope to release. Here we set the low limit. High limit. Now we also want the resonance knob inverted in the same macro. We set the resonance to its max value. Now we press low. Set the resonance to its minimum value. Here we press high. Now we are finished with the macro and can release the Learn button. We have now created a macro with user-defined ranges for frequency and release, and also an inverted range for the resonance. Yes, very useful. You can create 8 user-defined macros. On this MIDI controller there is only room for 4 macro knobs because all other knobs are occupied by the parameters. You can use multiple MIDI controllers if your MIDI host allows this, then you could use this Nano Control 2 for the 8 macros. The first 4 will be the same as on the XL. But here we also have macro 5 to 8. The MP-800 also has 8 predefined macros that you could control from the 8 faders here. The S buttons here could be used for snaps, that we will describe next. These buttons could be used for preset, save, load, random and so on. The M and R buttons could be bank and slot select buttons. Read more in the manual. The Launch Control XL can be used to control almost all features from one single MIDI controller. This is made possible by the fact that the parameter cycle buttons at the bottom have multiple functions, depending on which mode the MP-800 is in. A snap is a snapshot that can include up to 4 parameters with their values. When you press a snap, it overwrites the included parameters with the snapshot values. Press and hold the Learn button. Then we need to select which snap we want to program. On this Launch Control XL we do not have dedicated buttons for the snaps. Therefore we need to use the Shift button that shifts the lowest buttons to become snaps buttons instead. Here we select Snap 1 and then we can release the Shift button. Next we need to include up to 4 parameters and their value. Keep holding the Learn button. We want long release in this snap, high VCF frequency, and a little resonance. Release the Learn button to finalize and save this snap. Let's learn Snap 2. Let's set the same 3 parameters to other values. Learn, Shift, Snap 3. Change the 3 parameters again. Let go of the Learn button. Now we have created 3 snaps with different values for the same 3 parameters. To recall or fire these snaps, we need to press and hold the Shift button, and select the snap we want. Macros and snaps are saved globally and can be used on whatever patch you currently are using. Press and hold the preset button. 3, 4. Let's try the macro that we made before on this current sound. If you want to use the snap shift function with your MIDI controller, then it is very important that you use the same layout for the bottom buttons that we have here. If you have another layout, then the shift, bank and slot select buttons will be placed in a very confusing order. Chorus, Curse fade, tuning DCO2, Nice. Cutoff frequency. Waveforms. Let's save this to bank 1 slot 3. Waveforms. Wow. Nice. We need to save this. Save, bank 1, slot 4. Now we can load all the 4 sounds we have created. Load bank 1 slot 1. Slot 2. Slot 3. And our latest sound 4.